When you think of Berlin, you probably think of a bustling metropolis. But Berlin is also a city of rivers, lakes, and canals, and parks where families can play. Berlin is also a city rich in history. This year they celebrate their 750th birthday. In Europe, Berlin is a mecca for young artists, and a masterpiece just might be found painted on the sidewalk. There are elegant Baroque buildings reminiscent of another time when German royalty ruled the land. Very few of these buildings remain today. Most were lost in the war. West Berlin is what you might call an economic miracle. At least that's what they called it back in the 60s and the 50s when these buildings were constructed. And this is East Berlin. The wall built in 1962 still divides East and West, and reminds us of those who tried to cross that wall. Berlin has its monument to peace, but its history is one of being torn apart by war. Adolf Hitler used the 1936 Olympics as a propaganda tool to fan the flames of war. Berlin was left in shambles by the ravages of the conflict. After the war was over, Berlin, isolated from the world, relied upon the airlift to feed its hungry people, its food supply cut off by a communist blockade. Just a few years later, Berlin was once again the battleground for the Cold War. The wall became a barrier separating ideologies and human beings.
When one man is enslaved, all are not free. All free men, wherever they may live, are citizens of Berlin. And therefore, as a free man, I take pride in the words, Ich bin ein Berliner.
At the site where John F. Kennedy spoke those famous words over 2 decades ago, the riders will finish their races today. Meantime, the first road race of the Tour de France starts with the 207 riders assembling in front of the Reichstag building, Hitler's headquarters during the war. It's a perfect morning in July.
Berlin is the farthest start point in the race's history, and after the opening prologue, the riders faced a short 65 miles road race inside West Berlin last Thursday. The route followed a counterclockwise direction after starting from outside the Reichstag building near the wall. And the yellow jersey is everyone's target, and the man wearing it this morning is yesterday's prologue winner, Jelle Neidem, who is defending a tenuous 3 seconds lead. There are no hills to test the riders, but the chance of $3,000 for the daily stage win, or even capturing the yellow jersey, they could be the rewards. Stephen Roach is ready for battle with a crash helmet on. He's probably more interested in keeping out of trouble on an always tense opening day. Frenchman Laurent Fignon, a man who may be tense for other reasons. His poor time in the prologue didn't place him close enough on time to the yellow jersey, and he seems annoyed. Young American hope Andy Hampsten has settled in quickly, and with youthful enthusiasm perhaps, he keeps up a patrol of the pack, which is considerable now in size. And And on a hot sunny day, the high speed soon projects the candidates for victory, and a group of 8 men escape the attention of the pack. For a while at least, an alliance between rivals is formed. The Berliners watch the pack race by, and they're over a minute now behind the leaders. The man with most to gain in this escape is Lech Piasecki. How ironic that a Polish rider was leading the attack in the shadow of the Berlin Wall. With 3 miles to go, Piasecki has the chance to become the first ever Eastern Bloc leader in the history of the Tour, and he wasn't going to let it go now. The pack is closing fast, but on this short stage, time is running out. Piasecki expects no help from the rest as they leave him to work hard to try and keep ahead. He needs just a 3 seconds advantage over the pack to make this historic lead. Feelings in the beginning proved justified as the field began to fold like a pack of cards. Among the fallers but unhurt is Laurent Fignon, but he's quickly up and away. Even on the easiest of stages, these are the real dangers to potential Tour winners. The race is not particular when it chooses its victims. And for the Italian Alfonso Giuliani, his tour lasted precisely 90 minutes. He's forced out with a broken collarbone. Ironically, up front, it's Giuliani's teammate who tries to win the stage. But right on the line and watch the left, it's Nico Verhoeven who gives Holland another victory. Piasecki is 6th, giving him the best overall time and an historic yellow jersey.
So the Tour has its first road race winner, a sparkling performance by Lech Piasecki. And isn't it ironic that the Tour was held in Berlin with the hope of cracking the Eastern Bloc to allow their riders to come to the West? East Germany and the Soviet Union declined, and now a Polish rider wears the yellow jersey and is congratulated by the Prime Minister of France in West Berlin. So after stage 1, here are the top 5 riders. Piasecki on top, but not by much. The Tour contenders are biding their time because later this day is the all-important team time trial, and relaxing before the race are the Americans in Europe.
This is the way we spend our summer.
This is our collegiate trip to Europe. Yesterday was Introduction to Pain 101. Today was Introduction to Nerves 102. This afternoon, Introduction to Speed. Who has it and who doesn't?
That turn. Don't go the outside. So make sure you stay the inside. It's a small island in this turn right here. Right here. Okay.
The Americans check the course before the start of the critical team time trial. This is a race where all 9 men ride together and share a common time at the finish. Weakness cannot be hidden. The faster riders will lose time if the slower ones cannot keep up. Andy Hampsten knows his fate is in the hands of his teammates. Their time is his time. A poor performance could ruin his chance of winning the yellow jersey later. Last year at this time, the 7-Eleven team was basking in the glow of the yellow jersey. Alex Steeda had shocked the cycling world by winning the 2nd stage of the Tour 1 year ago today. That morning race had been the most important moment in cycling history for the Americans, and that afternoon, the riders were relaxed and happy as they rolled out of the Paris suburbs for their team time trial. Happy, that is, until disaster struck. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. The 7-Eleven team came unglued, splintered into separate parts, each rider trying to survive the near total collapse. The defense of the yellow jersey was all but over. Not like the way it was with the well-oiled European racing machines sprinting in single file, each rider taking his turn at the front to break the wind, The group riding faster together than any single rider could alone. Alex Steeda, exhausted from his all-out effort to get the yellow jersey only hours before, became an albatross around the neck of his team as they tried to pull him home. They suffered the embarrassment of being passed by a team starting 5 minutes behind. So as the first group of 6 riders crossed the finish line, the American team realized that last year's Tour de France was really over for them on the second day of racing. They had come within seconds of losing their last 3 riders, including Steeda, the trio just making the cutoff, which eliminates any rider finishing too far behind the leader. But things would change for these dejected athletes. And like the phoenix from the ashes, the American team has risen again.
It's going to be an American team out there that isn't just going to be this picture of struggle and you know, hanging on to survive. You know, we got to be up there. We got to be dealing the cards this year. We got to be doing stuff in the race. And you know, maybe that sounds boastful, but we have to do it. I mean, we don't have a guy like Andy Hampsten on this team to not do that, and we're not going to leave him high and dry. There's too much talent, too much motivation, and too much to lose. Like Bob, the one thing you can't do is stand up on the front, because you accelerate without really realizing it, and when you went over that last hill, you just about...
Determined not to relive last year's nightmare, the American team stayed in California during the European racing season to work on the coordination and teamwork needed to battle their foreign adversaries. Working together at home was a risk because it kept them 6,000 miles away from the people they would face in the Tour de France.
So the thing is just go as smooth as we were going, but just a little bit faster.
All right.
Total relax.
So we'll do one more big lap and then come back here and stop again, and then we'll see about doing another, maybe a lap or 2 on the 5-mile circuit.
Fueled by a $1.25 million budget, almost double that of last year, and propelled by a newly acquired $200,000 a year star in Andy Hampsten, 7-Eleven had stepped into the big time of professional cycling. The skills of the team time trial practiced on the back roads and rolling hills of Southern California might make the difference in Andy Hampsten getting the yellow jersey or not having a chance. 7-Eleven will soon be tested here in Berlin on the second day of the Tour de France. Tested against the likes of Laurent Fignon and his System U team, the same team which used their high-tech attack to destroy the Americans last year. Fignon talks with his coach, Cyril Guimard, a man who coached the last 3 Tour champions. The System U riders almost cocky, knowing they are one of the strong favorites in the team time trial. Their star Fignon searches for the power to lead his teammates against the stopwatch. While another team captain gets ready in his own way, Andy Hampsten hoping the lessons learned in California will pay off here today in Berlin, and wondering if disaster will strike again. Fignon and his finely tuned racing machine are poised for their assault on the clock in a 25-mile course.
10 minutes!
It's System U and their rematch with the Americans when we come back.
For the 7-Eleven team, the memories of a year ago when they lost the yellow jersey, still a nightmare they hope will never be relived.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop!
But first it was last year's winners, the System U team, who set off along the Schlussstrasse. They are soon into formation. After a rest of only 3 hours from the road race, the route this time was a loop of 25 miles to bring the riders back to the same finish.
If we can make a big mistake here. So if we make a mistake, this will be a big one, but we're not going to. So the better we do, the less danger will be in the race.
Last year, it was the System U team who demonstrated to the rookie 7-Eleven squad how to ride the most technically difficult stage of the Tour de France. Then they finished with a time 6 minutes faster, and the 7-Eleven team were all but last. This time, the 7-Eleven riders had other ideas, and they quickly fell into formation at the start. Lesson number 1, 3 straight A's. If you do it right, in team time trialing, each rider sets the pace at the front for about 50 yards or so, and then he falls gently back into a drafting position. With the 7-Eleven team, lesson number 2, straight A's again. The 7-Eleven team were moving as a single unit, and if you want to succeed on this stage, this is what you really must do. At the 10 kilometers check, the System U team were ahead, but by seconds now, not minutes. Riding as smooth as silk at an average speed of 31 miles an hour, the 7-Elevens were gaining confidence with every turn of the pedals. Stephen Roach's Carrera team, the last to start, were fastest at all the checkpoints, and Roach, with the confidence every leader should have in his team, was content to just play his turns when it came. The time for the team is taken on the 5th rider to finish, so this way the strong men often have to wait for the weaker ones. This is truly a team event, and the one the team